Have you ever been in the thrift shop, charity shop, and seen a really gorgeous circular tablecloth and thought, oh, could I make a skirt out of that? Well, that was me this morning. I'd like to do a waistband with elastic, but I don't want the elastic to show. And I also need to line it as well because it's a bit see-through here. So I've washed it, pressed it. Do you want to go on this ride with me and see how I get on? So the first thing I've done is I've folded it in half and then I've folded it in half again because I know that I need to do some cutting on this point here. Done a bit of research and this is the calculation I need to make. My hip measurement plus 2 inches. So my hips measure 39 inches plus 2 equals 41 inches. I need to do 41 divided by 6.28 and that will give me the calculation for cutting here. So I've got 41 divided by 6.28, 6.53, just over 6.5 inches. I now need to measure from this point all the way around to cut an opening for me to get in and out of this skirt. And 6.5 inches, it's cutting into this lace here, which I'm not too happy about. But I'm thinking that whatever I cut into it, I'm going to use some of this as seam allowance. I'm thinking I'm going to mark it at 6 inches, see how it goes. I can always cut more off if I need to. So let's mark it out. So that's all marked. I'm now going to cut this line. That's my circle cut out. And that's my waist that I need to now attach a piece of fabric to as a waistband. I've used the edge of my tape measure and measured around, guesstimating where the seam allowance will be. Sometimes do this when I want to check the measurement of something. And when I've doubled it over, it's come to 39 inches, which might be a bit tight for comfort getting over my hips. So yeah, the calculation was right. I need to add an extra ½ inch onto the cut. I found a better pen for marking and I'm just putting on this extra ½ inch that I should have done before. Being a rebel doesn't always work, does it? But I can always cut off, but I can't stick back on. So we're doing a quick calculation here. What we got there? 10.25 inches, so that'll be 41, which is what I need it to be. The tablecloth, or should I say skirt, has got lots of lace on, which is beautiful, but I can't wear it like that. I'm not that brave. So I need to line it, and I've got a thrifted cot sheet that I bought because I think that will that'll be fine. That'll keep me decent. The lining doesn't need to be a full circle. I'm thinking if I measure the hip measurement and make some sort of A-line skirt from that to the length that I need it to be. I've made a simple A-line skirt out of this cotton lawn, and I was just checking that the waist measures the same as on my skirt. Normally when you make a lined skirt, the lining seam you would hide in between the lining and the exterior fabric just to hide it, but because I've got this very open work lace on this skirt, I've decided to put the seam on the inside just because it will look a lot neater. This is the elastic I'm going to use for my waistband, and I've decided that the cotton lawn I've got, I'm going to use it double because single it shows through this pinky colour. So if I use it double, that'll be fine, but I need to work out how wide to cut this waistband. This is my elastic I'm going to use, and I've measured it, and it's 1 1/8". I need a little bit of wiggle room for the elastic to move through the casing. If I did the casing at 1 3/8, I need to double that and then add 5/8 of an inch and 5/8 of an inch for the seam. Or an easy way to do that would be 1 3/8 plus 5/8 of an inch, which is 2. So that's 4. So if I cut my waistband 4 inches wide, and then I'm going to cut it more than the 41 inches, just so I've got a bit to play with for it going around the top of the skirt. I've pinned the waistband to the skirt. This is the centre back, if you will, and I've folded back to mark where the seam line will be for here. What I've decided to do is sew a seam halfway between these two and then leave a gap here. The idea being that when I then fold the waistband to the wrong side, there'll be a lovely seam on the front here, but the back will be open to feed the elastic through, and then if I want to be able to catch stitch that in place. So finger press this to mark that. Not pricking my finger, which I just did then. Take those 2 pins out. Now I can match those marks up there. If I sew along this line, but just to halfway. So I'm just finger pressing that halfway mark there. And what I will do is I'll go just slightly over that so that the stitching goes over the top of the waistband. Half of that has now been stitched. This can now be pinned in place on the rest of this waistband. I can sew all around the edge of the waistband now. Waistband is all stitched in. I'm going to fold that over to the back. So that'll be her front, all looking nice and neat. My idea is, when that's stitched to the seam line there, I've then got a little hole to be able to feed the elastic through. To reduce a bit of bulk, I'm going to trim this here before I press the seam up towards the waistband. When I was at the ironing board, I pressed the seam up on the inside, and then I pressed it from the right side as well. And I checked that there's plenty of room for my elastic to go in. I realised because I folded my waistband over and it's double thickness, I don't really need to fold it over and stitch it down, which is what you can do if you've done a waistband and it's got raw edges. Fold that down and stitch it to the seam line there. You can either do that catch stitch by hand, or what I'm going to do is stitch in the ditch. And because I've got that folded edge, I'm going to make life really easy for myself and just fold it down and keep that smooth edge there. So I'm going to pin it all the way around. Including here where I've got my gap. I'll make sure they're nice and close up together there. To stitch in the ditch, you follow your line of stitching where the waistband meets the skirt. imagining it's a ditch. It's a stitch in the ditch, like this. And that way the stitches are kind of hidden. This is where my join is. With the help of a safety pin, I can now thread the elastic through this opening in the back, all the way around, making sure I don't twist it. Top tip when you're threading elastic through is to pin the end just to secure it so it doesn't get lost when I'm pulling through the rest of the elastic. I've reached the end, threading it through. So I took that on this side while I thread the other end through. There we are, there's my safety pin. Oh, it's quite gathered, this fabric. Oh, let's put it through. Remove the safety pin, I'm done with that. I'm going to pin this elastic together, overlap it a bit, pin it. And now what I'd like to do is try this on, just to check that that will fit over my hips okay, and that it's going to be fitted enough on my waist. I tried the skirt on and I've adjusted the elastic to where it fit me, but now I'm going to stitch this together and then that can go inside the waistband. It's a little bit fiddly. I'm using a zigzag stitch. I think it just gives it a little bit more stretch. So now that can go back inside the waist. And it's tucked in out of the way. What I'm going to do now is just hand stitch that together, just to keep it neat and tidy. 2 or 3 stitches to start. And then it's folding over quite happily there, so I'll do a few little stitches. And that should keep everything securely in place. These gathers aren't evenly distributed, but if I stretch the skirt, waistband, they magically are now. What I would like to do, because elastic can twist inside the casing, I'm going to find the 2 side seams, which is here, and what I will do is run up and down a couple of times just to hold that in place there. I could also stretch and sew all along here, but I quite like the look it is at the moment, so I'm going to do this with the side seam and see how that looks. Here I've just done a vertical line on the side seam and one on the other side as well, and I'm hoping that'll stop the elastic from twisting around. I'm pretty much done. I've just got the hem of the lining to do. This is my skirt in action. Really pleased with it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and follow me for more.